Hey guys, how you doing? This is Paul, and I've been using the LG G4 for about a month now as basically my daily driver, and during my time with it, I've noticed that there are so many amazing things about this phone, but there are also a few drawbacks that should be accounted for if you're thinking about picking this phone up. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my 3 main pros of the G4 along with the 3 main cons. Enjoy! So for our first pro, we have obviously the camera. So the G4 has one of the best cameras on any smartphone out right now, with its only big competitor being the Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge. The pictures this camera takes are simply beautiful, and with 16 megapixels, you'll be able to crop in really far and still get a usable photo. The wide open f1.8 aperture produces a lot of clean bokeh and allows it to let in more light for less noise in low light conditions. They also brought back laser autofocus from last year's G3, and this allows for extremely fast focus. But one of the coolest features that hardcore photographers will love is the manual mode, which can be used to tweak pretty much all the camera settings like the white balance, ISO, shutter speed, and you can even manual focus. So like I said, people who are into photography are going to love this feature, but the average user would probably want to leave it in auto for the most part. As far as video goes, it performs pretty well, not the best out there, and unfortunately manual mode is not available with video, but it does record 4K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 30 frames per second, and 720p at 60 frames per second. Moving on to our first con, we have the size of the G4, and this phone is pretty big. So if you remember my video last year about the G3, I mentioned that I didn't like how large it was, and this year the G4 is even larger even though it has the same screen size. So this brings about problems like difficulty fitting it into small pockets, small purses, and it can also be pretty hard to use with one hand. In the G3, we saw that LG had a few options to help with one-handed use. An example being that you could slide the keyboard to either the right or left side of the screen, and I found this to be really helpful, especially since I have super small hands. But for some reason LG just ditched that with the G4, and now typing can be pretty hard, and I normally have to resort to using 2 hands. I guess you could think of this as sort of a trade-off for getting such a big display, so it's up to you to decide whether this can be a deal breaker or not. So for our second con, we have the display. The G3 had a fantastic display, and the G4's is even better. It's more color accurate, so it's not too cool or too warm. It gets pretty bright, and it is extremely sharp. It's a 1440p display, and as 1440p content is slowly becoming more and more popular, we're starting to be able to really take advantage of those extra pixels. 1440p videos on YouTube have been available for a while now on mobile, and they look fantastic on the G4. I think the best content I've seen is the preloaded video that LG made for the G4, and obviously they would have optimized this to look as good as possible, and it definitely does. So that video that you can see here is super crispy and sharp, and is really just meant to show off how amazing the screen on the G4 can be. So for our second con, we have that small back-facing speaker. And no matter how good a screen on a phone is, you probably aren't going to want to watch a lot of movies or videos on it if it doesn't have good speakers. Now the speaker itself doesn't sound terrible. It gets pretty loud, but it sounds a little hollow, but the main issue is its location. So it's located in a bad position on the back where it can easily be muffled by just one finger. Also, since it's on the back, if I'm trying to listen somewhere where it's pretty loud, I have to cup my hand around the back and put it up against my ear. I really wish more companies like LG would follow in HTC's footsteps and start bringing more front-facing speakers to their phones. So for our third and final pro, we have that removable back. So since Samsung switched to a glass back on their Galaxy S6, LG is now left as one of the only companies to still feature a removable back. Now this comes with a lot of advantages. So if you're running low on the 32 gigabytes of built-in storage, you can just pop in an SD card and be good to go. There's also a SIM card slot and a removable battery. So I found with my experience in smartphones that the batteries seem to decay over about a year's worth of usage. And I mentioned in a video a few months ago that the battery life on my G3 had been doing really bad. So all I did was buy a new battery on eBay for $8 and I popped it in and it held its charge good as new. Another cool thing that LG is featuring are their leather backs. So if you aren't a fan of the sort of diamond patterned plastic back, I know I'm not too big of a fan of that, LG has you covered, but this will cost you $50. Now the final con is the skin that LG has put on top of Android 5.1 Lollipop. Now this is completely personal preference, but I just don't really like the look and feel of LG's skin. It's not really slow or anything, in fact it's normally pretty quick and snappy, but I just don't like the theme they have going on here. So I tried to tone everything down, change the home screen that was pre-installed, and I guess I could change the icons if I really wanted to, but it's not even just that. For example, the settings app and menus are laid out really poorly, and it always takes me a minute to find the exact setting that I wanted to adjust. So like I said, this is entirely my opinion. Some people might really like LG's version of Android, but I know that I would definitely prefer stock Android, especially if it would save 10 gigabytes that LG's skin takes up. So there you guys have it. Those are my 3 main pros and 3 main cons of the LG G4. So I'm loving this phone so far. It's a fantastic device, and I wanted to give you guys some of my opinions to just think about if you're thinking about buying the phone. So hopefully you guys like this video. If you did like it, please give me a thumbs up down below and subscribe for some more content coming soon. Thanks.